I'm so amazed at how far God has brought me on this journey. There have been times when I couldn't see beyond just 1 foot ahead of me. And looking back, I recognize that God doesn't need me to carry out his purposes on this planet, but he has invited us into this story. It started 10 years ago at the summit, 2006. I heard Bill and Bono challenging the church to understand the urgency behind HIV and AIDS. Bono at the time said that only 6% of the church felt that it was incumbent upon them to do anything about HIV and AIDS. And he said, God will not let the church walk away from the AIDS emergency because it's difficult, because it's costly, or because it's a moral hazard. I was sitting there at that event with a friend of mine, Zach. We were both 18. We were so just young and passionate about trying to change the world. And how could the American church be involved in helping address this issue? So we left Chicago with a 2-day drive ahead of us back to Atlanta. As we drove, God revealed to us that he wanted us to make a documentary, which was unusual because we weren't filmmakers. But we said yes, and we took that step. 9 months later, from the summit to May of 2007, we were on a plane going to Kenya for the first time. It turns out that the documentary did not accomplish what we hoped it would accomplish. It was not a success, but it was while we were there in Kenya that God showed us what that next step was. He introduced us to 2 men named Cornell and Duncan that would change our path and set us on a whole new course. Cornell and Duncan had met about 5 years earlier. They discovered that their stories were very similar. The way that they had experienced HIV, the way that it had affected their lives and their families, and the way that God was moving them to care for people that were affected. Cornell and Duncan had put all of these ideas into a plan, and that plan was to mobilize the Kenyan church to care for parents living with HIV as a means to prevent hundreds and thousands of children from becoming orphans. And this idea of orphan prevention just captured my heart and my imagination. We realized that our part wasn't to go to Kenya and start something. It was to leverage these local leaders that were already on the ground and already had an incredible vision. We chose this local church to start in January 2008, and that was the place of our first Care for AIDS Center. We now employ over 80 Kenyan staff full-time. We've seen over 6,000 families complete the program, and they represent over 20,000 children. It's now been a 10-year journey. It was that first step that has allowed me to experience this incredible story of Care for AIDS, but also experience God on a whole new level that I'm afraid I would have missed if I hadn't taken that first step.